Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to ESL One Road to Rio. It's day number 18, and we're about never mind, wrong broadcast. You would be mistaken for expecting Counter-Strike to be on the screens today, but it's just going to be the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. HLTV Confirmed episode 18. And I am joined by Prof Striker. Obviously, you can see Pronax here. Lucas is here as well. But as always, we want to get this out the way for anybody listening later on the VOD, on the audio, the Anchor FM. Today, we're going to be covering such things as talking about Astralis with just, I don't even know what to call that circus of a roster right now. meyern, well, he's on the way out of MIBR's door. We're going to be talking about the road to Rio. And of course, we will be interviewing Pronax. But first and foremost, let's do our introductions. Prof, would you rather have out-of-control body hair or extremely pungent body odor for the rest of your life? Which one?
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
That's an easy decision, man.
Look, considering like the Corona situation and what I'm doing right now, if I just smell, no one can actually feel that, but I can look good on camera. So I'll pick that.
Okay, so you're going to go with that one. That's not too bad. I can see the logic there. Striker, yep. Would you rather for the rest of your life only be able to use a spoon or a fork?
Wow. Try to come up with like.
Well, you don't need either.
I'd say spoon.
Striker actually made his own like utensils out of a cardboard box once at an event.
We've done that as well.
It was amazing. It was a spoon, fork, knife, and all in one.
It's everything, man. I'd say spoon just because like. You can kind of eat anything with that, so you can't really with a fork. Like you can't eat a soup with a fork. I'm with you there. Now, Pronax, I'm not going to ask you any silly questions. I'm just going to say, how you doing? How's Sweden? Is everything doing all right?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I actually wanted one of those.
Oh,
questions.
You want one? I can give you one. I can give you one. All right. Would you rather? This is the one I used to use on Tinder all the time. So I'll give you this one. It's not sexual, I promise. Would you rather fight 10 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
One horse-sized duck, I think.
You reckon you want to fight a horse-sized duck? That thing could eat you whole. That thing would be fucking huge.
I was thinking the other way around.
A horse-sized duck. Or a duck.
Oh, you meant the 10 little horses, huh?
The 10 little horses? The 10 little horses, that was the answer all the girls used to give because they're like, oh, they'd be so cute. And then one really smart girl, she was like, they'd be so cute and I could sell them and make a lot of money. She was a genius. She was really smart. But let's get into the Counter-Strike. We got to roll the wipe. Let's put Pronax in the hot seat, shall we, Lucas? All right, so we're back, and Pronax is here now. I was actually preparing something for this before we get into it, Marcus. Hold up 1 second. I wanted to read this out, and you can tell me how accurate it is. 1 second. Marcus Pronax Walston, am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Definitely.
Okay. Born on June 24, 1991, is a former Swedish professional Counter-Strike Global Offensive and Counter-Strike 1.6 player. He is known for his incredible reading of the opponent, leading his former fnatic squad to 3 major championships. He was the in-game leader of his self-made organization known as GODSENT. He left GODSENT upon the organization ceasing operations on the 21st of June in 2018. On September 6th of 2019, he returned to lead the CSGO division of GODSENT after the organization merged with the Final Tribe. Is that all accurate?
I would say it's accurate.
This is why Liquipedia is better than HLTV.org, Marcus.
But I wouldn't say that I'm really leading the CSGO section right now. They are pretty much self-sufficient. And they come to us when they need help with something. And we just try to overlook the project, basically.
That's perfect, because you can segue right into for us, what is us? Who is us? And what is your job right now? Because you just said you're not hugely involved with the CS team with hands-on stuff. So what are you doing?
Basically, I've never felt more free in my whole life. I wake up and pretty much do whatever I want. I try to do stuff that is relevant to GODSENT, but lately I've been more focusing on myself, self-development. I've been starting to read books very recently. I realized that that's something I really enjoy, so I'm gonna continue doing that. Other than that, I just want to, I guess, educate myself, because I've been a CS player for like almost 20 years now, or 15 years at least, just sitting at the computer. So I guess I just want to get out from that a little bit. I don't want to detach myself completely from CS because I want it to be a part of my life. It's always been a part of my life. But just educate myself and become a better version of myself. So I think that will bring GODSENT forward as well.
Okay, so that sounds like a journey that a lot of people I'm talking to lately are on. We've all dedicated a lot of time to this video game, and there's clearly more things to life than just Counter-Strike. But I interrupted you just before when I was reading out that blurb from Liquipedia. What were you going to say is wrong there with what they said? Your relationship with the Counter-Strike team, right? That's where you were going with it?
Yeah, so I mean, I obviously watch their games. Sometimes I watch their practices, not that much. They definitely especially Devilwalk and kRYSTAL comes to me. It haven't happened that often, but if they have any problems, they want another perspective, or they just want help with something, they can come to me and they will know that I will always be there to help them. But like I said, these 5 players have played for a very long time, and they have Devilwalk as a coach who has as much experience as I do, and we have always worked very, very close together. So I don't feel like I can really teach them anything special that they can't learn themselves or that they don't really know already. So I think it's more about being there, being supportive. And we also made sure that lately they actually have started working with a sports psychologist, and I think that will definitely help them.
Okay. Are you still keeping up with CS as much as you have before? Are you even capable of helping them in things like strategies and reading the game and stuff like that? Do you still have that kind of knowledge?
I definitely still have it, but I would have to update myself on more details on how they actually play. But when I watch practices, I definitely see things that that I have opinions on, but I try to not give them too much of my own opinions when I'm not that invested in how they actually play.
Okay, so in terms of the organization as a whole, maybe this could be a good time to kind of break down historically kind of the original run of GODSENT and then the GODSENT that we know today, right? Because this is obviously a rebooted organization. You guys have started again, similar people involved, but it's no longer a full Swedish roster. So do you want to talk about what happened in the past and what happened to allow this to now be the future?
Okay, so, wow, a lot of things have happened actually, but when we first started GODSENT, it was me, Snyder, Pauf, Lekro, and Twist. And Devilwalk was supposed to be a part of it, but I guess things happened in his life. He had to take a break from CS, and that's when we brought in Lekro, actually. And a guy named Thomas Oropesa contacted me. He's from Spain originally, but he lived in my hometown, and he wanted to invest in a team. Back then, the original plan was actually to bring back Eyeballers, a very old Swedish brand. We talked to the owner of that brand, and he wanted to do it. But then Thomas contacted me, and it was a better deal. He brought in more money, and we realized that we can create our own brand from it. But honestly, I was lucky because the initial plans was that all the players was gonna go in as co-owners. But when everything happened, the players decided that they didn't really want to be a part of it. They didn't see the upswing of it, and obviously they didn't think about retiring, which I already did then. GODSENT was gonna be my next step, basically. So I planned to create an organization so I would have something to retire for, basically. Then we ended up working with Refresh. They contacted us basically because I guess they liked GODSENT as a brand, and they wanted us in their portfolio. And they basically took over control of the whole organization. They were the one that brought in the money, and yeah, basically we lost all control. And from then on, GODSENT was supposed to be only a CSGO team. But then those conflict of interest rules came.
Which now, of course, are no longer a big thing, right?
Exactly. But I mean, today, I've been a bit sad about how things turned out. But today I don't care about it. I'm very happy with what I have with GODSENT today and the people in GODSENT today. And like how it actually got relaunched. Oof, this is a long story, but basically, I don't even, like 1.5, 2 years ago, I decided that I want to bring back GODSENT again, like I said, because it was gonna be my retirement, basically. And I started taking meetings. Like the first thing I did was that I wanted a CSGO team because of the history with GODSENT and CS. I think it's super important. And I wanted a Swedish team originally. And the plan was the ancient team that was Draken, Plopsky, Rusty, who else? I'm forgetting.
Grooks at the minor
That,
as well.
He replaced Plopsky, but it was Disco Doppler and Freddie B as
Freddie
well.
B, yeah.
And Barbara as a coach. The original plan was to relaunch GODSENT with them. And we wanted it, or I wanted to do it like we did the first time around, when we created Ancient and then we became GODSENT. So we wanted to repeat history, basically. So they started playing as Ancient, basically just because GODSENT wasn't relaunched yet. We had no budget, no plans, nothing. But that was the first step. So they started playing as Ancient, while I was trying to find the correct people to rebuild GODSENT. But then Plopsky joined an IP. He got an offer that he couldn't refuse, basically. I totally understand him. I supported him. I was happy for him, but that made it so the other players, especially Draken, like the project, after we lost Plopsky, the project was basically, we wanted to build it around Draken, but he didn't see the potential that he saw in the original team, and it was super hard to find a good replacement for Plopsky because he's such a complete player. So, and then Freddie B later left to join Gamer Legion, and when that happened, Draken, you could tell that he didn't believe in the project. So, and I actually agree with him. Like the players in Sweden, that was possible for us to get. We would never be able to build a really good team out of that. So he was on the fence on whether he wanted to commit to it long term or not, and that made us realize that we need to find another way. And basically, that's when Smash just dropped into our laps, basically. And we signed them as fast as we could because we realized the potential in the team. And signing them, like, we really got a team, which is hard to find nowadays.
Okay.
But these guys are very hard working, and yeah, we're super lucky to have them. But other than that, like I said, for me, like I have no experience doing what I was doing. I was going around taking meetings, just trying to find people basically that could help me bring GODSENT back. And I had a few people that I wanted to approach, but eventually it was actually Henrik Denebrandt that found me. He came to me, and he had been researching esports for more than 1 year, different organizations, and initially he actually wanted to invest and be a part of Astralis. Like in his own mind, he thought that would have been like the best opportunity. But then when he did more research, he realized that okay, Astralis is way too established already, too big. So the next online was GODSENT, basically. He contacted me, and we clicked very well. We decided that we wanted to bring it back, and when I met him, like Ancient was still part of the project. But then when he was actually reaching out to Pixelbet, a betting sponsor, Ludwig from the Final Tribe was sitting at the office in Malta because they were sponsoring the Final Tribe. So he saw that email, and like 1 hour after, he contacted us and like wanted to merge the organizations. And
happy coincidence, you're saying, randomness and everything coming into it.
So, and we started talking to them. They already had a pretty good Dota 2 team. We didn't have anything, but we still had the Ancient team that wasn't signed on paper yet, and we had GODSENT as a brand, and me and Henrik. But they had the infrastructure here in Malmö, like a really good office with everything set up for our teams to boot camp, and they have also sold boot camps to other professional teams. And we just started talking about where we see ourselves, where they see themselves, and it was a really good match to make something to actually be able to compete with other organizations. Like if we didn't do the merge, we would have been competing against the Final Tribe for sponsorships for basically everything. So we decided to merge instead and work together, and it's been going very well, to be honest.
Okay, well, thank you very much for doing that. I know there's going to be a lot of things.
We have an echo right there.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot of things I think you just touched on that either Prof or Striker are probably going to have a follow-up to, considering the current climate. Climate is the word I'm looking for. Prof, Striker, you guys got anything here?
I wanted to just ask about like the thing that when you're moving away from being a player, and you touched on at the beginning, like learning new things and new stuff, how going into meetings as an ex-player that doesn't have like business background or anything, how much does being pronax, being 3-time major winner, having all of this like following and stuff like that, how much does that help? Is that a thing that when you go into a meeting with, I don't know, Henrik, whatever, I couldn't really follow up with the last names and everything, but like a serious businessman looking to invest, how much do they like appreciate that, and how much does that help?
I mean, I honestly don't know. I think being pronax obviously has value in esports, and GODSENT as a brand definitely had value. Like I think it's a well-respected brand if you look at how, like, it haven't existed for many years, but it's still a very respected brand, in my opinion. But I didn't really think about that. I just went into the meetings talking as much shit as possible, trying to sell what I was trying to sell. When I look back at it now, I can only laugh about some of the stuff that I definitely oversold some stuff, but definitely undersold some other stuff.
I mean, that's part of the job, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was just going in there like it was actually Karn that taught me just to talk shit, you know.
That's great.
Good
actually.
insight.
Yeah, because Khan's also another one, right? For those who aren't too familiar, obviously a legend of fnatic 1.6, and then he moved into a role within the organization, and now he's one of the head honchos over there, right? So quite the transition to go through. And personally for me, I'm loving hearing this stuff, right? Because this is on the business side of things as opposed to just the Counter-Strike in the server side of things. But we'll have to, unless you got anything, Striker or Prof, you got anything more you want to follow up with here?
No, I just while you were talking about the whole like how the Draken team didn't really pan out and stuff like that. Obviously, this is all around the time when like Gamer Legion and Ancient and what was the other team that was like kind of the Apollonians, right? Or
Red Reserve or whatever.
Red Reserve. Oh yeah, that's the one. Obviously, like these teams like kept changing literally like from day to day almost. Like some of these. Why do you think that was?
I think the Swedish scene has the same problems right now. I think it's probably deeply rooted in some of the players' personality and what they want to achieve. And I think that when they don't achieve what they want as fast as they want to achieve it, they start looking for excuses and they get fed up. And people always think that the grass will be greener on the other side, basically. So basically, I think it's about people giving up on what they initially wanted to do when they committed to that project, basically.
Okay. I just have one more question before you go over to a completely different topic. At the beginning, you talked about books. What is like? Give me one highlight book that you read, and or for the viewers or something that maybe could be useful.
Like I said, I just started. Right now I just picked a random book from the office. We have probably like 500 books here minimum or something like that. It's fucking insane. But I just picked one randomly, and it ended up being Bruce Lee, the Artist of Life. And so far it's actually super interesting. I've read 150 pages, so I'm a bit of a slow reader, but I'm learning. It's going better and better. But I'm definitely gonna continue with it because the world just disappears around you, basically, when you read, or at least for me. And I never thought in my life that I would enjoy reading a book.
Mate, I never thought I'd enjoy broccoli, but now I can't get enough of the fucking vegetable.
Exactly.
It's crazy, right?
Exactly.
All the shit our parents tell us when we're kids, we're like, shut the fuck up, I'm playing Counter-Strike. And then you're an adult and you're like, if I'd only listened, if I'd only listened back then. But that's great stuff. I'm fucking thoroughly enthralled by this conversation. I want to keep this going. Let's move this forward into the GODSENT CSGO squad itself. Now, you've already touched a little bit. You said they were already a team that you picked up and that they have a great work ethic. But do you want to go into a little bit more detail with this squad in terms of when they came to you, or when there were as a possibility there? Was it just the connection that you have with Devilwalk as a big pulling point, or you did see a lot of potential in these kids that they can turn themselves into a very good Counter-Strike team?
I definitely saw a lot of potential in the team. What struck me, what made me very surprised, is that they didn't have any salary. So in my head, this team wasn't even a possibility for us, because back then we were not gonna spend a lot of money to buy out a team from another organization. But when I realized that we can get this team for free and they haven't been paid salaries for I don't know how long it was, but
it was almost a year.
Exactly.
A year, yeah.
So they were very happy with the budget we had, but we built the salary they have today is higher than when they joined, basically, because they've been performing very well under GODSENT and they have been climbing the rankings. So when they joined, they didn't have the best salaries, but definitely salaries that they were happy with. And then we built a performance-based program where they've actually been able to raise their salaries now. So I think they're quite happy with it.
So I'm just going to pull this out for people who might not be too familiar with what that means. So in the contract, right, correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm going to use hypothetical numbers. Let's just say that when you originally signed them in the contract, it said this is your monthly salary, but if you achieve such and such ranking in the world rankings, or if you achieve certain placings at certain tournaments, your salary can go from, let's say, 2,000 to 4,000, right? Just throwing something like that.
Yeah, exactly like that. It's performance based in the fact that if they reach top 20 on the ranking, their salaries would go up. If they qualify for a very big tournament, their salaries would go up and stuff like that. So that's how we work around we didn't have the best budget. And I think that when we signed them, in my mind as an old CS player, I definitely they were very nice to us to accept what they accepted. To put it like that.
Okay, that sounds like it worked out well for everybody then.
Yes, I think so.
Well, I'm just gonna put some context on this. They are in the top 20 currently, and they've been there for 3 months in a row now.
So that's good stuff. So they've obviously they've worked for their paycheck, and I think that's going to be a very poignant conversation later down in the show. But do you guys have any more questions about the CS team before I move forward to pronax's career?
I guess there is a question, generally a question about this GODSENT lineup. Obviously, as you said, you're not that connected directly into the players and how they play and stuff like that. But from your experience as a former in-game leader as well, kRYSTAL has been a guy that his history in the game is building teams, getting kicked, building teams, 3 players getting picked off and stuff like that. But it kind of ties down to his performance in the server, which you were also criticized for at some points. And nowadays, in the recent games, kRYSTAL as well has not been lighting up the scoreboard for sure. So how do you look at that, and do you have any interactions with the team based on that particular, let's say, issue or topic?
The thing, I'm actually very impressed with kRYSTAL's mentality of he's always willing to learn. He definitely gets a lot of criticism for his play when he doesn't perform as good as the rest of the teams want him to. But he takes what they say very seriously, and he tries to improve. And I think that's the story of pretty much every in-game leader. They build teams and then they get kicked for poor performances. But the thing about being an in-game leader is that you actually sacrifice a lot of yourself for the better of the team. You do a lot of stuff that the other players doesn't even have to think about. And kRYSTAL I think he's very good at building strategies. He really thinks about small details, like every little Molotov, every little flash. So I think he's a big part of the success of this team. They actually I don't know if this is public knowledge or not, but I'm gonna say it anyway. They actually did kick him. It was before they joined GODSENT. They actually kicked him, but realized 2 days later, what the fuck did we do? We actually need him. Like they couldn't function without him. So I think he's a very big reason as to why they are where they are now as a team. And I think Devilwalk helps him a lot, but at the same time, I think Devilwalk wouldn't be as good as a coach as he is without kRYSTAL, because Devilwalk doesn't have to focus on the strategy part as much as maybe other coaches does. So I think they complement each other very well, and I think they together, kRYSTAL and Devilwalk together, are basically the driving forces behind this team.
Okay, that's a great answer, and I don't think that was public, was it, guys? You keep
No, I don't think so.
Right, but
well, now it is done.
There we go. So it's an exclusive. We're dropping those here today, but that also ties us in. Prof made a very good segue there. Now, obviously, you're a legend, right? There's no conversation about that. You won the first CSGO major ever. You led a team to 3 major championships. That's only recently been broken by Astralis. What you and your team were able to achieve was insane. And I kind of want to go with the point that Prof was just bringing up in terms of, like, for you as an individual, how did you know that it was, the end of the road, that it was time to retire, that you wanted to move on from Counter-Strike, at least as a professional player?
The truth is, I didn't really know. I think I was done pretty much. I started feeling back in 2014 that I didn't enjoy playing as much. I did practicing wasn't as fun. I started having problems just motivating myself as a person to do the extra job that was needed. So I was just kind of going on old stuff. Like, I stopped reinventing myself as a player. Maybe in 2015, I actually stopped reinventing myself as an in-game leader as well, and just went with what I've learned so far. And when that starts to happen, I think that's when you start to figure out that, okay, maybe I should start planning for something else. But then I actually got a lot of motivation when I started GODSENT with the first lineup. That's when I got some fire inside of me, and I really wanted to make that team successful. But it was definitely hard. I think we did pretty good with the pieces we had. I think we climbed to top 10 at least, or something like that. I'm pretty sure we did. But then Twist actually wanted to make changes to the lineup because he wasn't happy. And I think this is something that a lot of players, like I said, they want to achieve so much that they forget that it will actually take time. And changing a player is not always the right thing to do. But he wanted to make changes to the lineup, and then we had a lot of problems with that lineup, considering that we were pretty good, but we were having a lot of discussions, and Twist was thinking about leaving because he had offers from pretty much every top team there is. He was super, his peak at that point was insane. I don't know. It was actually when we brought in Crims, Flash, and JW from fnatic, and that just turned to shit. That's when I just felt like I didn't have any motivation to start over again. I still tried because I wanted, it was more for the sake of GODSENT, basically, and not for myself. So yeah.
Okay, and this one here is a question that I'm sure you've had people ask you plenty of times. And it's probably a question that people sitting on my side of the table have asked a lot about players like you and GODSENT, etc. Is there a reason that you haven't pursued coaching? Right, as someone with a great Counter-Strike mind like yours, is there a reason that you haven't grabbed that and tried to become one of the greatest coaches in CSGO?
There's definitely a lot of reasons to it, but like I said, I wanted to. When I decided to quit playing, I basically wanted to do something else. If I was gonna jump right back into coaching, it's more work than being a player if you're gonna do it correctly. So, and it's boring as well compared to playing. So I think that's the reason. I just wanted to do something else. I wanted to bring back GODSENT, and I realized that I can't be coaching at the same time. I need to focus on one thing at a time. And also, like, I wanted to figure out who I am without CS, and just like live a normal life for a while. But I always had in the back of my mind that I can always go back to coaching. Like that opportunity won't exist forever, but I think that I will still have that opportunity for a few more years if that's something that I want to approach, basically.
Sure.
But then now with Devilwalk, like, I think he's a super good coach. He has a lot of experience doing it as well, because I don't think I would be a good coach from day one if I decide that today I want to start coaching. It's a learning process to that as well. And I also don't think that just because you have been a good in-game leader doesn't mean that you necessarily will be a good coach. Because I think that a coach's job is not to... I don't think there's any coach in CS that will be able to teach players like simple device. They will know more about the game than the coaches. So I think a coach job is more about like...
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm with you. The psychological
Yeah.
side of things, yeah.
Exactly. Like there's a lot of other parts to coaching than just strategies.
Okay.
That's why I think that Sonic, for example, he's definitely one of the most respected coaches in CSGO today. But he has never played CSGO professionally. And so that's why I also think that I think HUNDEN would definitely be a good coach, but people might expect too much from him in the beginning just because he was a good in-game leader, because I think there's so many other aspects that goes into coaching.
Sure. And I remember back in the day, like, because obviously people might not be too familiar with your and my relationship, but obviously back 2013, right, we were at that MSI Beat It tournament together, and then we met up in Sweden not long after, and we had a bit of a boot camp before that first major, if I remember rightly. I'm just trying to remember. But we actually got to spend a lot of time together because you guys were staying with us and we were practicing, like we were going to the same practice facilities and stuff. And I picked up very early on that the dynamic of your team was quite clearly you and Devilwalk were always talking Counter-Strike together. And I could see that like what he offered to the team was on more of a personal like side of things, right? Like he was that figure for the squad while you were the tactical guy, and the dynamic it was very quite clear even back then. So that's great that the two of you still have been able to continue this kind of relationship through up until this point. What are we on now? 7 years later. Like holy shit! When you think about that, man, fuck.
Time flies.
Yeah, and I think here, like the things that for me personally, like I don't even give a fuck the camera's rolling right now. The shit that you're saying about like finding out who you are and how you feel about things and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm 30 now. That's shit that I'm only just starting to think about. And that's only because I've been locked in this place in Germany for over 2 months here and I haven't been able to leave. Like otherwise, I don't know, tell me if you feel this, but I felt up until a certain point that my life for the last like 7 years has been like operating on momentum and like a chance to actually stop and reflect and think about shit. It doesn't even seem like it should be hard to do because we're thinking all the time, but it truly, unless you like remove yourself from a situation, you don't even know what it looks like. And yeah, I respect the fuck out of the answers you just gave us, man. So much appreciated for that. Prof, Striker, you guys got anything you want to throw in there?
I can't
think of anything right now.
Nope. There are a bunch of like random questions in the chat, but one when we were at the I don't know, retiring and playing with people and stuff like that, there was that report that you were trialing for FaZe, and that is what people are asking about in the chat. Like, was that the thing? I mean, obviously it was, but how did it go? And that was already at the point where you were kind of dipping out of CS, it feels like. Yeah. Even though even now people still say when a team is missing an in-game leader, sometimes people say pro plus pronax minus whoever. So yeah, what was a FaZe thing? What was that about and how did it go?
I never trialed for FaZe. Like I never actually played with them. Olof wrote me and asked if I wanted to play the major with them, basically, if I was given the opportunity. So they definitely discussed it, and I was I was a name on a list basically, and it went as far as they actually asked me if I was interested, and I basically answered that yes, I want to play the major, but don't expect too much, because I mean back then, like, I've never played in a team talking English. I don't have any problem talking English. I can definitely play while talking English, but calling I knew would be a problem for me back then. Like, and I didn't know like positions in English and stuff like that. So I definitely wanted to play. I would have done my absolute best to play the major. It would have been super fun to just like randomly get a spot at the major. But I think they made the correct choice going with Adrian.
At the time, I guess you weren't as much of a businessman, you know, the talking shit perspective and stuff like that. You didn't oversell your your skills.
I was actually honest with him back then. I said I would really like to play, but like I totally understand if you go with someone else. But I really appreciate him. I appreciate they just thinking about me, that they thought it would have been a good fit.
Okay, I got one here that I asked this to so many like pros who were playing back in the very early days, and I think that either I phrased the question extremely poorly, or they don't see it. So I'm going to try with you now. I watch Counter-Strike for a minimum of 6 hours every single day of my life. I usually watch Counter-Strike for probably 10 hours every single day. But one thing that I have noticed, and personally going from somebody who I didn't compete on a high level in 1.6, but I definitely played a shitload of that. I played more of that than I did the other two versions. I played Source on a professional level and then CSGO to a whatever, fuck that. But my point here that I'm trying to get to is, do you feel that the game in the last, let's just say 2 years, has like extremely accelerated in how individuals are approaching it, right? On a team level, we've seen that. We talk about utility damage and all that kind of stuff a lot more now. But in terms of individuals, when I watch, I see the micro decisions and the movement, and the game has changed from a broad stroke round to let's go do a default to there is so much more detail. Do you see that when you watch?
Yes, I definitely see that. But I also think it's very natural and it's inevitable. Because the next generation will always learn from the past generation. And the next generation will only pick up on the good things, while the old generations will have picked up on the things that they thought were good, but weren't as good. And it's very hard to break patterns, basically. And like the next generation of CS players, you're going to have some insane players, because they are going to learn from Simple, Saivu, and the best players today. So I think it's very natural, and it's fun to see how good players are today, because like you said, like there is so like you can't find mistakes from some players basically, whereas what made us as so good in Fnatic was that we exploited mistakes of players basically. I never anti-stratted teams because that's very hard to do, but you can look at players and find patterns in their play, and that's very easy to exploit if you're attacking a site and you know what player is holding that site, and you know what positions he usually take, and you can find patterns to exploit basically.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're done with the hot seat section, boys. Fucking hell, that was great. Can we do that again? Jesus. All right, let's keep this going. We're going to move on right now to what we're titling the Valorant effect. Now, Pronax, have you played any Valorant? You loaded her up? You tested her out?
Yeah, I've tested it. I played like a total of maybe 10 to 15 games.
What did you think? What did you think?
I mean, first of all, I don't think you can compare it to CS at all. It's a totally different game. People that say that it's like 80% CS or whatever.
I just saw that from Steel. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I actually was thinking about Henry G.
Okay.
He made that comment.
His opinion has changed since. I'm with him every day. We haven't touched the game in about a month now. Yeah. So his opinion's definitely changed.
Okay, but I don't think it's a bad game. I just don't think you can compare it to CS at all. So if you're gonna play it, you need to go in with an open mind, and it's a new game basically. But I think in general, I'm actually excited that we will get another FPS game that might be big. And I don't see anything negative about it, because this is a game that might succeed in bringing different scenes together. And I don't think that it necessarily have to be bad for CS, because it will only make the FPS scene bigger. So it might actually bring more players to CS eventually.
And also that competition is always good, right? Like this is going to push Valve to potentially rethink some things that they've done before, and maybe approach the game a little bit differently. So that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So with this, who's got the list? Prof, Striker? Which one of you guys has the list?
I mean, I don't have a particular list. I don't know if Prof has, but I have at least because it's mostly NA players, and I just wrote about Freakazoid, being one of them. So I went back and saw some of the players who did it. So it's it's mostly NA players. I actually can't think of.
Pith is one.
Oh yeah, that's right. Pith is one of the EU ones, but obviously it's been outside of the NA guys around Swole Patrol and Orgless, who people have obviously kind of watched recently because they were in Flashpoint and stuff like that, or at least part of that discussion. Those people are probably the most notable. About Orgless, I don't even know which players actually made the transition. Only Wardell's Twitter says that he's a pro Valorant player. I don't know if that's a joke or it's just like a whatever. He hasn't actually said that he's switching to Valorant or anything, but it looks like that whole team disintegrated, same as Swole Patrol, because of Valorant, because they didn't get an org, and they potentially had some offers on Valorant, or just wanted to, get ahead and try to put it out to the world that they are looking for Valorant teams. So those are the kind of people that we're talking about.
Yeah, so I think Cooper wants to stay playing CS, which
Cooper's
I think is a great decision from him, because when I watched him play, I thought that he had a real good mind for it, and just watching him on the AWP, he seemed like a very serviceable player. But obviously, we touched on Sick last time round, Freakazoid. Obviously, we may as well just let's just make a general assumption that the majority of Orgless will make that choice, and probably quite a few players from Swole Patrol. I think Zelsus had some form of
Food already said that they would. Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit, because first of all, I want people at home who are listening to take what Marcus just said about this potentially being good for everybody into place, right? And just because you are like a fanatic at home and you're a massive fan of Counter-Strike, you only see CS, right? You can be that person, that's fine. But you don't need to be a person who gets upset when somebody decides they want to make a career-based decision moving to a different game, right? This right now for these guys, it's their life, right? I think this is probably the most important thing that I want to get through here for everybody. This is their life, and it's their decision, and we all make good and bad decisions in our lives, and we only work it out by fucking trial and error. No one knows what they're doing. But if I've been through this split before, it hasn't been Counter-Strike versus another game before that I've ever felt threatened by, and I don't actually feel threatened in this circumstance either. But previously, when CGS happened, and there was a split in North America, a very clear split between 1.6 players, either moving to Source because they could make more money, or those who stuck with it, like the Nothings of the world. You had everybody like Rambo and K-Sharp and all the legendary names of 1.6 make the shift to CGS, right? Because of the money. And you can sit there and you can call these people shills or sellouts or whatever. Source was nowhere near as good of a game as 1.6. Like nobody in their right mind would ever try and have that debate. But if you can put food on the table versus having to still work a fucking 8-hour day shift and then go home and play Counter-Strike because you love it, you're probably going to make the transition to playing a video game as a full. We're talking over 10 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. So with that in mind, I think this is just the same thing happening again, but now there's more options. Streaming wasn't a massive thing back in 2008. People weren't personalities making money like the Shrouds and the Ninjas of the world, that type of stuff, right? We didn't have as many opportunities and as much money to be made. And now with Valorant coming on out, there's a chance for these guys who, if they start picking it up right now, they can get a head start because their mechanical ability will be better than people coming from other games, right? You can come from your fucking MOBAs and your other FPS games like your Call of Duties and shit. Your mechanical ability will not be as good as a Counter-Strike player. I don't give a fuck what you think. Like you might think that you're some sick cunt. You're not. You're not. Counter-Strike players have the best mechanical ability for Valorant because they've copied so many things, right? That's very smart of them. It's a successful game. But yeah, I just put this down to it's a choice. If it works, great. If not, well, who cares? We're still going to do our shit with Counter-Strike. But Prof, I know you had a bunch of things you want to say about this.
I just wanted to say when you said they need to put food on the table, I just visualize food being put on the table.
Okay.
And it was kind of funny. That's all I want to say.
Oh my God. No,
Props to that. No, I mean, at the same time, I agree with what you're saying. The community is the community. We know it's not really rational. Everyone felt it. Pronax felt it. in 2014 as well, and 15, and the cheating and others and the boosts and all of that shit. Like, the community is kind of idiotic and unreasonable and lovable at the same time. But when you look at it, like, these are people, and we are the same people to a degree as well. We're literally a fan of a person because he plays a video game kind of good or pretty good, and maybe has a decent personality. Like, of course, like, that is dumb in itself to a degree. So of course they're gonna have dumb reaction when that person that they liked because they played a video game then leaves that video game to play a different video game. It's not that hard to actually fathom. Like, we shouldn't make it that big of a thing. Like, it kind of makes sense that people are upset about it, even though in the end, like, you, one person that are writing about this, like, and calling people shit because they're gonna go and, I don't know, play Valorant for an actual salary, just like, chill out a bit. It's okay.
I mean,
it's
fans have such a sense of entitlement towards these players for some reason. Even though, like we've said, like, there's pretty much lives at stake and careers at stake when they make these decisions. Because obviously, especially when you look at the American guys, they haven't had orgs for like months in a row, and they probably wouldn't get any just because of the current situation, not because of Valorant. I'm talking about because of Corona. That is going to affect a lot of these tier 2 organizations that are not as well established as the tier 1s. And those are not going to just start, picking up entire teams and paying big salaries to them, or like reasonable salaries to them that these guys would actually try to get. So
at
like,
the
you have
same
to
time,
take that into consideration too.
I mean, I understand why they make the move, because like, you can't, like, your life is moving forward and it's not going back. So like, you have to make a move now for your future and stuff like that. But when you look at most of these players that are quitting now, they were in teams that were salaried, that were shit. Like, most of them, for at least half a year or a year and a half, they were like getting paid for being number 35, 40 in the world, being like 8 in a NA Pro League, stuff like they got the good part. So now, theoretically, if they were smart, maybe they could have saved some money so they don't have to go on the street if they aren't going to be in an org for 2 months. But at the same time, when you know it's more likely that you're going to get a job in Valorant, then I can't really blame him for that. But blaming NA and blaming orgs for not being there, like, you also like got the good part and you got the bad part. So just live with it now. Don't blame other people. It's not like they didn't have opportunities. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
they all had opportunities in like Ghost and Echo Fox and United, Singularity, all of those shit. So I don't know.
For a lot of players, I don't necessarily think it's only about the money either. It's about the competition. And like you said, if you're in a tier 2 and or a tier 3 team in CS today, you're not gonna be seen at any competitions. And the road to get there is super hard. But here comes an opportunity to be able to compete at the top quite fast for a lot of players, or at least that's what they think in their own mind. Otherwise, they wouldn't make the switch. So it's not only about what game they play, because it's still an FPS games that has some elements from CS. And I agree with SPUNJ that the CS players is gonna have they're gonna have an easy time in this game compared to some players coming from other games. So I think people see it as an easy opportunity to compete at a high level and make money as a bonus while they are doing it.
Yeah, I think people should look at this like, if you had an opportunity right now, right, to have Counter-Strike's knowledge of every single individual in the entire world erased, and then we all start from scratch and we see who can get to where Simple is now, and go, you'd probably consider it, right? Because everybody wants to be like, anybody who's watching this podcast right now, you maybe have a really good job. You could be making a shitload of money. Then you're really happy with your life. But probably at one point, you're like, fuck, I'd love to be one of those pro gamers flying around the world, having all these groupies in my DMs and playing in front of arenas and all this kind. You'd probably think that's a pretty sick life, right? And you'd give it a crack. So for Valorant, and especially with how big that thing is probably going to be within North America, just look at League of Legends, it's worth a shot to make some money. But let's segue this. Pronax, is this something that GODSENT are looking into or considering or thinking it may hamper anything to do with CS?
No, we're definitely looking into Valorant, but we're not going to sign a Valorant team for the coming months. I think it's way too early. You're not going to you're gonna have players that are gonna be the best players in the beginning because they got a head start, but over time it will even out, and I think we're gonna try to be reasonable and not invest too soon, and we're gonna try to analyze the scene and get a good team in the future when the scene is more developed, basically. But we did sign a female team for VALORANT.
Okay.
But like that's without knowing if there's even gonna be a female scene in the game. But they can always stream, they can play community tournaments and stuff like that, and it's still good for the organization, and it's a very good opportunity for them. But for the male team, we're gonna take a lot more time and try to find a really good team, basically.
Okay, well that's yeah. Well, look, the growth there is another thing that I think people have to realize, right? I don't know. I'm just taking a stab in the dark. I haven't actually read any of this shit with it, but I have a feeling that if I was Riot, I probably wouldn't run any of my own tournaments for some time anyway. You know, let it do like they do with League of Legends, have it community done for a while, let it grow organically, and then once it's successful, once someone else has spent all the money and done all the hard work, come on in. Build your own shit. You've already got all the infrastructure. You've already got the places in Europe. You've already got the places in North America, and just fucking bang around and do it basically like a League of Legends version, but for an FPS game. And look, one of the biggest things that we're having a conversation about in the last 2 years with Counter-Strike is oversaturation of the calendar and not clear storylines and all this kind of bullshit that Valorant can literally solve like that, because the person that owns the IP, the intellectual property, aka the video game, want to be hands-on. And I'm not saying that is the correct move. I fucking love Valve. And the older I get and the more that I think about their approach to the game and their approach to certain scenarios, I actually can see where they're coming from. It's like, if I don't have to do any work, would I do any work? No, I'm a lazy motherfucker. And like Valve know when they have to do work and when they don't. They're a very efficient company. So I'm getting into Counter-Strike talk, but we have the last little header here as long-term effects on CSGO. I think we already covered off those, right? Like we said that there's a potential... Yeah, hit us.
There's just obviously we already talked about like the talent, but the bigger problem is the people that are the veterans, who I think we can all assume are now going to be like the next stars in Valorant. They're probably going to be the same kind of role where they're going to try to in-game lead and stuff like that. And I'm not entirely sure that that's going to be a great thing, just because it's, like we said, it's an entirely new game. A very different approach is required to play it and stuff like that. So the skills aren't necessarily transferable. So the veterans leaving somebody like potentially FNS, even though I'm just going to say he hasn't actually said that he's moving over, but I guess there's a possibility. But Freakazoid has already said that he would. And those kind of people leaving is a much bigger problem than like a lot of the young talent that potentially wouldn't have gotten anywhere without these people who would develop them. So that's the big problem that I see for especially North American Counter-Strike, because in Europe, I think the pool is so massive and there's so many good people like a kRYSTAL or like those kind of guys that can bring people up. So that's the problem that I see for North America.
They've been through this a couple times now, though. North America's had to go through the same. And look, let's be honest. Right now, looking at their best teams, most of their in-game leaders aren't doing a very good job being in-game leaders as it is. So I think that they are always going to have that same problem in their country. But one of the things in our chat that we were kind of, or at least I was talking about, was this seems like it's a North America only problem. I know that, for example, Ferg from Australia, he's VAC banned, but he's been a coach for he was a coach for Chiefs for some time. He used to play 1.6 for I don't want to forget the name, but French teams. He used to play with Gino, and there was a team called Millennium.
That was Millennium,
probably. Yeah, and there was one more.
Elevate. No, not Elevate. Yeah. Against
all authority. But yeah, so he's a guy. He's a Perth guy as well. So I know him on a personal level, and for him, he's my age. So he's 30, and with Valorant coming out, it's a prospect for a boat that he missed because he was a very good 1.6 player in Australia. Unfortunately, with what happened for him in CSGO, which is obviously his own fault, but whatever, he can now have a shot at a career. That's like one of very few. Like Tux is probably another one you'd throw in there, and
Swag.
Who?
Swag.
Oh yeah, Swag. Yeah, Steel.
Emilio is making a switch, right? That's Pronax's friend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's gonna try to compete or not, but he's playing it a lot, and from what I've seen, he's actually quite decent at the game.
Yeah, so I think like for those guys, it's almost a shot at redemption. And I'm not saying what they did by cheating or by throwing games or whatever they were banned for. I'm not saying what they did was right. I'm definitely not saying that. But what I'm saying is people fucking learn and change and grow and are different. So like the fact that they get another opportunity in something with some transferable skills, you know, that has to be a positive right there. But back to the point I was trying to make, because I always go on these fucking tangents, is Australia has never been in a better position, at least from me looking back at Australia from this side of the pond, in a better position, right? We have 100 Thieves, and who obviously are an American organization, but that support still gets shown back in Australia. Renegades, who are doing a fantastic job with the APAC region across not only Counter-Strike, but a bunch of different games. Chiefs and Order, they're organizations who pay their players. I know football clubs, not football soccer, the European version, but football, Australian football, they're investing in esports in Australia. So Counter-Strike in Australia is in probably one of the best spots it's been in. In Europe, it doesn't feel like there's a mass exodus of players. It's just players who we've already forgotten talking about who are making the move. It's just a North American issue right now. And I think that goes back to Prof's point of North America is the place with the most money. We know that. But they've clearly seen that it's only sustainable for the very, very top. So you have to be within one of the best, let's say top 10 in North America to guarantee yourself a decent salary and a decent organization. And that's top 10 from the same country. Probably not even that.
If you look at it right now, it's basically like top 4.
Well, so MIBR,
I think there's, if we ignore the Brazilians and the imported teams, there are like 7 North American teams that are like decent organizations behind them. Is like,
if you look at NBA and Chaos beyond the top 4, then yeah.
Yeah, and you have Complexity also, who's kind of mixed, but they're supposed to be NA based, but whatever.
Well, think about NA based though, because I want to explain this to people, and pronax can probably chip on in here. The sponsorship budget that these teams are working with, it doesn't matter that fucking BlameF and Config are from Denmark, and that Obo is from North America, and that fucking Poison is from Bulgaria. It doesn't matter to the sponsor. Complexity are selling sponsorship in North America on a North American product. That goes for the same as, like, obviously they have other teams and all that kind of stuff going on, but they're selling sponsorship based off of their like region, right? And there's only so much money that can go around. You look at, let's look at Denmark as the perfect example. Astralis are the big swinging dick. North, they have a backing because they're, you know, part of FC Copenhagen. They've had to kind of get a sponsor that isn't, well, they're not even a sponsor, they're an owner. But my point here is that it's not like that they can't just go to the same sponsors as Astralis and say, hey, can we have some money too? There's only so much to go around. In North America, I can imagine, even if there was, let's just say you said 7, let's just say there was only 7 teams supporting Counter-Strike to a high level. That's a shitload of money coming from just North American-based sponsors, right? So there's only so much money that can go around. I don't know how many teams we think should even be sustainable from that region. Like, if we were going to now, like, go, okay, well, Sweden, they've been really good. Probably Sweden can have 4 really good sustainable teams. Denmark, yeah, they can, we'll give them 6. You know, like, we can't think about it like that. That's not the way that this goes. There's only so much money to go around. And unfortunately, the money's in VALORANT right now in North America, so that's where they have to go. So let's fucking keep going. Anyone want to top this off, or we happy?
I have nothing to add to that.
All right, cool. So pronax, this is the part of the show where you can decide if you want to hang around as we talk about 7-man rosters, the MIBR situation, and a little bit on HUNDEN, or you can leave. It's up to you. You get a choice. It's like pick your own adventure.
I mean, I can stay around for this discussion as well, and I'll leave after that.
Cool, let's do it. Okay, so we're going to get into recent news. Play the bumper, Lucas. All right, so we're back, and that's a really cool bumper that we get going on there. I hope you guys
I still love that one so much. It looks so good, man.
I don't know where you guys had these made, but I'm gonna have to make a couple just for personal use.
I think in Serbia, honestly. So,
okay. All right. Well,
right here in the neighborhood.
That's good. You're out there. You got Martin outsourcing some work, so he's being a businessman, that's for sure. But we're gonna get into the recent news, and we can't get any more recent. Fuck my life. We can't get any more recent than Astralis adding JUGi to the roster as the 7th player.
Technically 6th.
Technically 6th.
S-Tag didn't join yet, but whatever.
So technically 6th, but definitely would be the 7th signing that we know is on the cards. And Prof, can you take this? I don't even.
It is kind of mind-blowing. It just like it kind of started creeping in on us that they're actually doing this, and everyone was busy with like Corona, I don't know, Flashpoint, whatever, all of this big shit, and they're like, let's just ignore this Astralis thing that they're doing. They're signing a 6th player, like okay, whatever. And now the rumor comes out like 5 days ago, 6, that they're looking to add like a 7th and maybe an 8th player. And literally the funniest thing is that they're using the same sentences as Ago when they're announcing this. And when Ago announced it, it was like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Ha ha ha, stupid polls, blah blah. And now Astralis is like, this is very reasonable. I can't wait to see how this develops. Very intellectual move from the Denmark masterminds in Astralis. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I don't know.
When Moses made that tweet today, I was like, Jason, are you... I wanted to message him. I was like, Jason, are you serious? Like, I'm interested to see how it pans out too, but do I think it's a good idea? Not really. Like how is this possibly considered? I understand that somebody has to try something first, right? I get that. But how are they going to... Like, I know that Nicholas Nyholm's a very good businessman, but how the fuck is that guy going to leverage against all these TOs to make them change their roster rules, right? Apparently ESL already have something in theirs where they could do. I don't know. But, like, for the majors, we can't even get an actual 6th player to be signed up on the roster. We still have this fucking bullshit coach rule. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, how do they expect to get past that? The reason I don't want to talk about this is because I cannot see a clear path to this working. I'm not in Astralis. I don't understand their decision making. I am not in a position where I am privileged with that information. If they have this full game plan and they're going to build an entire 2nd roster and then exclusively practice against that 2nd roster so they don't have to give away any strategies in practice, if that's their take, fuck yeah, give it a shot. But like, at least give us some information to go off. The fact that you just signed JUGi, somebody who I've been excited about for years, but has let everybody down for years he hasn't been able to perform to his level that he did back when he was in that heroic team. He just hasn't lived up to the potential. And now they've signed him as another player. It's like, well, we know Device isn't going anywhere. So what the fuck? Like, this one makes even less sense. The Esatag one I could justify. Can AWP, can rifle, can entry frag, can clutch, has fantastic movement, already fills the gaps for all the teams he's played.
As well.
Can in-game lead. That one that makes sense. Get me fucking 5 Esatags. JUGi, like, and also, if they fucking believe that he wrote this statement, if they want me to believe that he wrote this, they're trying to pull fucking something over my eyes here. Let me read this for you guys. It feels like coming home, JUGi told Astralis' website. To be honest, I was really nervous, but the second I stepped in the office, everything just felt right. The group has grown a lot, but I know most of the guys around the team. I know the culture and I know what is expected of me, on and off the server. Fuck off. What? Like, come on, man. Like, I am just tilted by the whole thing. Like, it's probably going to be great. But why? Just tell me the truth. We don't have to fuck around here. Let's go. Yeah, some of our players aren't trying.
I'll just say something. Like, the whole thing, that since they announced this Esatag thing, like, it's good for them that they don't have to actually go to events where people can actually ask them stuff and like grill them about this, because all of their responses have been like completely PR'd, completely through their own filter, doing their own podcast, not like going on other people's shows or anything. It's like they are controlling the message because they know if people were out there like asking questions and having like Magisk answering all of them, then the idea that they're trying to present wouldn't go out as they wanted it. That's just what I want.
How's this? Stomach this. Actually stomach this on your Monday. I've had some great times here, and being able to wear the jersey with the red star on the chest, is just ... It's a pressure. I guess they meant it's a pleasure. It's humbling and it's motivating as nothing else. I guess they meant it's a pleasure.
I think it's bad. I don't think so. I think it's the pressures, right?
It's a pressure.
Like positive pressure. It's a pressure doesn't really work.
No, that's not English, but it doesn't matter.
Sure, it could have been like it's pressure, not. It's
so pronax, what do you think about this?
I mean, I think it's smart in the way that they are definitely weakening their opponents. Like they can assign all the best players for themselves and make sure that they don't have any competition in Denmark.
Be honest, but do you see JUGi as a Esatag maybe as like the best free players? I guess you can make that distinction because that's like a cheap move. But other than that, obviously, like JUGi and Astralis are not like the next best players.
Yeah, like I told you guys before the show started, I think signing Farlig would have been like made more sense in that case. But at the same time, I agree with we haven't seen JUGi's real like high level since Heroic. But if there's one organization that can actually bring it out of him, it's definitely Astralis. So for him, I think it's a good move. He will get access to everything around the team, the sports psychologist, Sonic as a coach, and obviously learn from the best players in the world. So for him, I think it makes sense if he wants to go back to his best level, basically.
You know what I think, and why this all would fucking fall into place is if this is like a hidden actual roster change where they just realize that they can't get a Astralis until 2 months from now, and realize they had to get another stand-in for that time, for those next 2 months, until Astralis can actually come in and replace whoever is getting replaced.
But what would the reason for that be, then?
Well, maybe just somebody doesn't want to play anymore. Maybe somebody's fed up with the pressure or whatever. I don't know what it is. I'm just saying that there's an entirely possible situation in which this is a roster change and Astralis are just basically masking it until they have to like reveal this. Because if you remember, like at the very beginning of this, they said explicitly that they were not thinking about signing any more players than 6. Explicitly, this was said by, who was it, Zonic?
I think
it was
Zonic said it, yeah.
They said explicitly that they would not sign any more players. And like fucking 2 weeks later or whatever it is, a couple of weeks later, they signed another player. So I feel like this is actually a reaction to something that happened. Maybe Astralis was not possible to get earlier from Heroic, even though he's on the bench. Probably like there's a bad relationship between those two organizations, so they're not letting Astralis go to Astralis earlier, and that's why this is happening. I think JUGi is literally just a stand-in for when Astralis comes in.
That's not a bad theory. Lucas, I'm going to send you a tweet here. Can you pull this up for everybody? Pull that bad boy up. This happened just before we went live with the show. Well, yeah, not that long after we went, just before, so about an hour before. And I was reading this, and I was like I try to just take this stuff in and go, okay, it makes sense. But this is from Nicholas Nyholm. Video listeners. So for this is Nicholas Nyholm. So he's tweeted, "We obviously didn't sign kRYSTAL, but there is little doubt that I would sign him again if given the chance. Marcus faltered under North because he performs poorly under negative pressure. Give him the right environment and he'll be a star once more." And then he followed that up with, "I've never spoken with kRYSTAL about it, but my best guess is that he left Astralis because he couldn't stand the negative pressure around the prolonged contract negotiations in the 6 months leading up to his departure." Now, reading this shit and then hearing what Marcus just said about weakening your opponents, mate, if you wanted to literally just own the entire Danish scene, taking kRYSTAL out of North would probably be your next best step. And then you take fucking Stown out of Heroic, right? You take fucking Acor out of Mad Lions. You've just fucked everybody's shit up, right? Like, you've just ruined your domestic competition completely. And I guess if they have the power, why not? Why not? Fuck,
it's also just like a monetary investment when you think of, let's talk like buyouts, random numbers. Obviously, I don't have them, but let's say that if you want to buy out Acor, or let's say Astralis, probably his buyout would be above 100K, and maybe you sign him for like a lower salary because he's a bench reserve player. You sign him for free, and you have him for like 6 to 12 months. For that buyout, just for the buyout fee, you'd have to pay to buy him out. So essentially, you didn't really lose anything. You can use him for like, I don't know, stupid cups that you don't want to play with your full roster. Maybe you can loan him out to another team or whatever, get some salary back from that. So obviously it is a bit of an overhead, but it's an overhead that then allows you to control your future and the future of everyone else in the scene.
Especially now with Flashpoint actually saying that they want to buy the best players for their league. So they are looking for both teams and players to join that league, and would probably, like the teams in Flashpoint, would probably spend money to get the players that they want. But honestly, I don't think that the Astralis are thinking like that. They probably have like a reasonable plan with what they're doing. But if we will ever know about it, that's another question.
Yeah,
I think it's just curious also the wording of that tweet, which is, let me just pull it up for 1 second. We have signed JUGi to the team ultimately, and that's the important word. The Jacob, whatever it's pronounced, will become the 7th member of the Astralis roster. They actually like put specifically 7th member of the Astralis roster. So that's something that also hints at that not being like a real 6-man situation, or like a 7-man situation, and more of a stand-in down the line. I'm not sure if maybe I'm reading too much into this, but that's just the feeling that I got from it.
Well, it's all been the PR department have been over this shit with a fine fucking tooth comb. Just reading the JUGi quote, right? So you can see here that they're obviously being very particular in the way that they present this, which is fine. I love Astralis. I think what they've done for the game of Counter-Strike is fantastic, and they've helped elevate everything. And if this is a positive thing for the game in the future, then great. But at the moment, this taking up space in my brain when it seems like it's just something that is happening on the side with no, like the Yampy one's at least exciting. They're playing tournaments with him. And then X7, he's being like, well, you can play the ones that, the VACT band player can't, right? That's what's happening. That's cool. Like I can live with that. They're not, even when I spoke to Twister in the interview on the ESL broadcast and Sunny, and we got to speak to them, and they're like, yeah, X7 is just kind of doing his own thing. We don't know how we're going to implement him in the future, was the general sentiment, right? Obviously not verbatim, but that was the general sentiment. So they clearly want to play with Yampy, but they can't. And this is helping motivate X7 because he looked fucking sick when he played for them the other night. So look, unless we got anything more about Astralis and this whole circus that's going on, I think I'll want to move this one to the next topic.
No, I just say look out for whoever like is out of the roster first, and I'd say that's a real lineup changer. Just like at least that player is probably going to step out for a while and maybe take a break or something before he comes back again. Maybe later in this year because he needs to take a break or something. I feel like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and if you were going to look towards any of those names, guys, it would probably be one of the original 3. So, have a think. Have a think. Well, if we're citing Burnout and we're citing those bits and pieces,
honestly, if you look at how much these guys have been playing for the last, like, let's say 2 years since they had this roster, like they've played so much that I could see how any of them could get burned out. Yeah. Like Glaive has been with them for close to 4 years now or something. Yeah. I think it was late 2016. Yeah. Or am I wrong?
End of 2016, ECS season, whatever. And
yeah, there you go. So that's like 4 years where you're basically like tournament to tournament, a lot. So I feel like any of them have like reasonable.
I lost reason. 2 years there. I just realized that 4 years have passed since that happened, as opposed to 2, which was all that was in my head. So yeah, any of them. So yeah,
Magiska's 2 now, almost exactly like that's 2 months off.
Yes. Okay. Well, we've tied that one up. Let's get on to my next favorite topic, MIBR. This one here is a good one, and actually watching them play and getting to digest their more modern games, I think we can tie that back into the conversation that Marcus and I were having during the hot seat about players maybe holding on to some of the things that are bad that we thought were good, like double AWPing all the time. MIBR at this point, obviously they have. It's not official, right? It's not official about the meyern thing. It's just
a report. But allegedly, they're already been practicing with TRK. So.
Okay. So TRK is the name who's meant to be coming into MIBR to take the place of meyern. Now, meyern, obviously, for those who aren't familiar, he was the only non-Brazilian in the roster. He's from Argentina, and he's been now traded to Team One. Apparently, he's
not traded. He's
not traded, just standing in. Okay, yeah. And he's on the roster for them for ESEA or something along those lines.
But they didn't play.
He left again or something. No.
Yeah, they joined. Okay. They applied with them, and then I don't know, maybe it was because people reported on it, and they didn't play. Whatever.
Okay, so let's break this conversation down into multiple parts. Let's first just talk about meyern in MIBR. Pronax, I don't know if you get to witness too many of those games they were playing based on Flashpoint and the scheduling and all those bits and pieces. Did you get a chance?
I mean, I've watched a few games, but I can't say that I have a lot of. I don't really know that much about MIBR nowadays.
Yeah, so for those people, we can catch everybody up. They still have Fur and Fallen as the core. Obviously, Taco's come in and out the door. He went over to Liquid for that stint. They brought in KNG, and then meyern was the most recent addition to this team. Now his stats and stuff have been great. He even was given a bunch of positions on maps that I would have loved to have played when I was a player. Getting to be the pit anchor on Inferno, fuck, that would have been a dream. He played there, and he was not doing great in the games that I watched. But from what I understood, and I'll probably get a lot of shit for this, but that's fine. What I understood is him being the only member of a team known as Made in Brazil. Also, the most forward-facing thing Counter-Strike related in Brazil, actually probably esports wise in Brazil, a hugely passionate esports nation, or at least Counter-Strike nation. As the odd one out, I can only imagine that he would have had a pretty hard time as far as social media and whatnot would have been concerned when they were losing matches. And I heard some comments from people that was the case. So he's only a kid as well. I think what is he, like 19?
Wasn't he 16, 17 when they signed him? So
he's
something
17.
like that.
No, he's 17.
Yeah.
17. Yeah. There you go. So he is a kid, like a definition.
If I can just jump on that, if people remember when Taco was originally signed and when people started shitting on him, and then Fallen came out and said like, "Oh, don't shit on him. He's the support player. He's doing everything right. You don't know shit." Whatever he said, that was a pretty memorable thing back then. I didn't see much like in defense of meyern at any point. Like literally a 16, 17-year-old kid going into a team like this with all of that pressure. Obviously, things can maybe go wrong. That did not happen. Like there is no support for meyern in this lineup from what I saw.
At the same time, like things have changed a lot since then, in terms of like public perception and stuff like that. Maybe he just doesn't want to have say something like that in public again, just because he probably got a lot of shit for it back then. Things like that. It's something that you have to take into consideration too. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that like he's not behind this move.
Yeah, that's true as well. I think that there's probably a lot of things that we don't know about, but there's a lot of things we've discussed on the show previously. And I think that Marcus, actually, you'd be perfect to kind of relate to this point here. Do you put a lot of stock in the fact that once you make it to the top of the mountain, which Fallen, Fur, and Taco definitely did, that it is difficult to maintain that level of drive and passion to keep that progression up?
I think this would have been a better question for like Flasha JW,
okay,
those guys. But no, when you get there, you definitely want to stay there. But it's definitely at the same time, it's harder to stay there than it is to get there. Because when you are there, you have to reinvent yourself pretty much all the time, because you're going to be the team that everyone is looking at. And I think that, yeah, you just need to keep reinventing yourself. You want to be ahead of the curve, and you don't want to follow the curve. And I think today what a lot of teams have been doing wrong is that they are looking at Astralis and what are they doing. And then they're trying to copying what Astralis does, which means that you will always be behind them. The only way to get ahead of them is to find your own thing. You need to try to find something that they are not doing, basically, which is a lot harder today since the game is more developed. But I think you can always go back to some old stuff that did work in the past, because the meta changes, which means that some things that didn't work for a while will start working again, and vice versa.
Here's a question then, because now that you've mentioned Fnatic, obviously they were through this whole, drop down to like somewhere like a top 20, like a position where MIBR are now, and then suddenly just coming back up completely out of the blue. I have no idea how this happened. And even then, they don't even look that different stylistically. They still have the same strengths that the team used to have, like when you were with the team, or just like after that, when that team was around. So how the hell did they make this happen, honestly? How did Fnatic come back without, disrupting the kind of style that they used to have?
I mean, honestly, I think Flasha is the biggest reason. When Flasha joined the team again, they started performing. Obviously, Golden as well. I don't know much about Golden as an in-game leader, except that obviously he is a good in-game leader, because they did perform very well with him when he was in the team the first time around. Then he got kicked, they started performing poorly, but at the same time they also lost Flasha. And for me, I've always said that Flasha is the best player I've always played with. He's the perfect player to have with you as an in-game leader, like a backup in-game leader, basically. He has very good communication, his micromanagement with players are very good, And it doesn't really matter what situation he finds himself in on the server. He will always find some type of way to figure out like the best way to handle the situation, basically. So and in Godsent, for example, that player is Sen, the Finnish guy. He's super good at micromanaging, and just like his communication is out of this world. And I think players like that are overlooked because they necessarily not always get the best stats, but what they bring to the team is so like to be a top team, you need a player like that. The in-game leader needs a player like that. And maybe that's what MIBR are missing now. And I don't think it makes sense to have both KNG and Fallen in the same team, for example.
Yeah, so when they first started, Fallen actually gave up the AWPing duties, the primary AWPing duties over to KNG, and then it didn't work. So then Fallen had taken them back, and Fallen is now doing on the T sides of most maps, I think it is, the AWPings. But on their CT side, they will prioritize every single round if they can, double AWP, right? That is their game plan. Get the AWPs up in their hands. And then when you add in the fact that they have Fur, who is also a hyper-aggressive individual, not only now do you have KNG and Fallen, who both operate best combat AWPing close quarters, getting stuck in. You have Fur, who's good at being aggressive. And then that leaves you with Taka, who is a supportive player who used to back up a bomb site anchor in Cold Zero. And then meyern, a kid who now has all this pressure applied onto him, right? So that recipe, when you look at it from that angle, it doesn't make any sense. And it's not a change that I think they can fix with just this one player, right? Yeah. Just bringing one in is not enough. I think they need two. And unfortunately for them, the place that they probably want to go to get all the good talent, well, they're locked away. They are locked up. They are definitely not playing for MIBR anytime soon. So I think that, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not from Brazil. I don't know what that scene looks like at all. But considering what Fallen and Co have done for that scene, I would assume that there is a shitload of talent out there, right? That there has to be a bunch of kids out there who are just frothing at the fucking mouth. Like there has to be a Brolin somewhere over there, right? The guys from Furia are like the second wave. Let's do this. Let's say the MIBR NIP. Right, let's do that, and then let's say that
the original NIP,
the original NIP, and then we have this obvious fucking Furia team, and let's say that they are the original Fnatic. So let's roll all the years back to like the 2013, 2014 type of shit. You've got the old guard, and then you've got the new boys who are getting it done, and both can be competitive. Like both can definitely be competitive, but they're showing different signs of life, right? Unfortunately, now MIBR have to go through the cycle that took NIP the better part of 4 years to get out of.
Like that.
So you got two choices. You either just fucking pull that plug and just start again, like keep one or two players. That's all they can keep, one or two of them, and start fresh and go again, or just keep plugging and playing and be happy with the results that you're getting, right? Just know that, yeah, okay, well, if we make it to the playoffs, that's pretty good. We're probably never going to be the best in the world again. And as competitors, that's probably a very difficult thing to stomach, right? Like that's probably not something that's easy to go with. But I feel that like they're definitely trying. MIBR are definitely trying. They're definitely putting in the work. I just think it's their approach to the game is they've got blinkers on because they haven't been able to step back. They haven't had that chance. And they need that chance to be able to see what they need to readdress in their own games. And I think that's a big part of Fnatic as well, because Flusher had time off, JW, they had time on different teams. They brought Brolin in, a kid with a fresh approach to the game. They still have things that they're good at. They still have their approaches to the game that are still great, but they've definitely added things, right? So MIBR probably needing to go through a similar awakening. You guys got anything you want to talk about with the MIBR stuff before we talk about God HUNDEN?
No, I think you nailed it right on the head there. Like even when this happened, I thought that they probably should have gotten Lucan as well, the other Argentinian guy that played for Sharks, who was at the time in better form and everything, and it could have maybe made more sense from this like merging the cultures and all of that in a bit of older guy. So whatever. Taco is probably someone that doesn't get criticized as much as he should for his performances most of the time, but with the whole team in shambles, then no one really cares, right?
I don't criticize any of the Brazilian teams because I don't want my DMs to be full of abuse.
You want to go to
simple
Rio
as that.
Major, right?
I like Brazil. Brazil was great. I've been there twice now. The people are lovely. It's just online they like to say mean things, and that's cool. I say mean things too. So we don't have to talk about it, and that's how we can avoid the problem. Now, speaking of problem,
This is very passive aggressive of you.
That's how I live my life. I'm very spiteful. Once upon a time, my sister pissed me off, so I used her toothbrush to clean the toilet. Anyway, moving forward. HUNDEN joins Heroic. Now, we all know that he's a beautiful man, and we talk about him a lot on this show because Martin is his -- fan, but he is an individual who was, for many years, if you're not too familiar with him, building up teams, having his players poached, building up teams, having his players poached. And then we had the Cinderella story. He had built a team. They were good. They were off everybody's radar because they were too busy fucking around with their academy teams and all the bullshit players that they've been doing the same shit with for years. And HUNDEN, he could see the light. He could see it. Mad Lions, they came. They gave him some fat checks and they said, listen, man, we're going to be fucking sick. And he believed it. And then two days later, it feels like they were like, listen, buddy, you're out. So HUNDEN made a big call, and we never really will know how that whole situation went down. We'll never know. But we do know that he's now coaching Heroic, and he's got a good team on his hands there. Are we excited? Are we excited for this Heroic team now? Like, what's the roster's looking pretty nice?
Well, how did that happen though? Because when he got benched in Mad Lions, wasn't he supposed to take a role in the organization?
The whole thing was so weirdly presented that I feel like that was just
that's what the organization said and what he said. And then just a few weeks later, he's joining Heroic as a coach.
People were lying. Let me tell you that much.
Definitely.
It was definitely like the message was definitely not very well presented. Let's say that.
There was an interview that he did with Richard Lewis where he kind of explained everything, and he said that he was burnt out and had like a breakup with his girlfriend and all of these things that kind of came together at the wrong time. So he was ready to play for the minor and Flashpoint and stuff like that. But then the team was like, yeah, if you're kind of out, then you're out, and they fuck everything. So they just got a Cillian right away. So there was something on his side, but yeah, the story was that he was supposed to look into doing something with the org, maybe do something with Valorant, blah blah, and then I guess things didn't really pan out on that side, so he just got an offer, and went to coach Heroic.
And I don't mind this Heroic roster, right?
Because I feel like it makes sense from a lot of angles.
So we've got obviously Cadian, Borup, and Stown. Those are the three that you remember from the previous iteration. And then the additions are Nico, and that's the one who played within the realms of Optic, obviously North for a period of time. He might even fit into that role that you were just talking about, Marcus, of like the flusher, because every in-game leader or everybody who seems to play with Nico comes back and says he's such a good teammate. So maybe he feels that. And then Tessus as the fifth of this. So they actually kicked off and had some pretty decent results, right? They were on a bit of a winning streak. I haven't been keeping my eyes on them. Have you guys?
I watched a couple of games, but it was like super early. They did the Elisa Invitational thing, but they failed. They lost to Dignitas in the end, but that was literally a day or two after they made the roster. And now they won against Secret and Northwind, so they didn't play that much. But it was literally maybe a week.
They even beat North in that first game, though. But
North lost to everyone there.
Yeah.
I haven't watched them at all, but I do think they have a decent lineup if just by looking on the players.
And with HUNDEN behind them, like I guess the question is, I assume Cadian's still in-game leading or will be in-game leading?
Yep.
Yeah, most likely.
So he'll be doing the AWPing in-game leading dynamic, and then HUNDEN basically just gets to move all of his pieces around, right? Because Cadian will carry... Cadian as a person, if you've never met him, he's always smiling. He's always happy to see you. He seems like a very genuine guy. So I think Cadian will be the type of guy to carry the team from the emotional perspective. And then HUNDEN can just do like the more strategic and that kind of thing. And I think you were talking about those relationships with kRYSTAL and Devilwalk. This could be similar, just the other way around, right? Like, well, potentially. I'm sure Cadian has a good mind for the game as well. But it seems like a pretty potent roster when it felt like they were getting... I think pilfered is the word I want to use. I'm going to have to check that. Maybe it's just a piece of slang we use in Australia.
I don't know what it means, so you should probably explain.
I'm going to pilfered like stolen, like taken away from you. Like,
okay.
I don't even know if it's a word. I'm probably just making that shit
up.
It
is a word.
There we go. So
steal
my brain
things
works.
Of little value.
There you go, guys. That's one from a guy who's been speaking English for 30 years. Sometimes I remember how to speak properly. But yeah, so there's not probably too much to write home because they've only played, what are we looking at here? 10 maps. They've won 8. They've lost 2. But the 4 of us here all sound excited. Is everyone excited?
Yeah. I think with these rosters, like even the heroic rosters we had, like for the last year, like they all look kind of good. But it's always, I guess the roles are not fitting or something along those lines. They get a new star, like Borup came into this lineup as a potential star and then turned to shit. instantly. So I think it's more about like how do you build a team and how do you use the players to make it make sense. And with this, it seems like there's a balance of kind of up and coming players that have some experience, players that want to play like more for the team, and like it's a bit of everything. And then HUNDEN is there, so it gets like plus 20% of like expectations and trust that it can be good, right?
Well, I guess this is going to see if those skills are transferable, right? Because there hasn't been too many coaches who were revered as an in-game leader and then instantly went over towards that coaching role, right? I can't think of many.
No, but if you think about what times we're living in now, considering there's not nearly as many limitations on coaching as there usually are, you know, and the majors especially, like he's going to have so much freedom for the next couple of months at least to do whatever he wants before, you know, the rules just strike back and he can't do a lot of these things again. So I think he's going to be able to do whatever he wants with this roster and more quickly than he would otherwise, where he would obviously be more on the preparation side and trying to like brainstorm how this team should play rather than actually help them during games. So I think this kind of time is actually really good for Heroic to try this.
I think this time is really good for a lot of teams. Actually, I'm going to go with most because I'm going to bring this up. I wasn't going to. Now, let me say this first and foremost, just before people get the wrong fucking idea. There is no way I would ever try to sell to anybody, even if my life was on the line, that online Counter-Strike is as competitive as LAN Counter-Strike. I'm not an idiot, all right? I've competed. I know I'm well aware of the differences. However, in a game where a huge portion of it is mental and we're in a scenario where the only type of Counter-Strike that you can play is online Counter-Strike, if you're going into every single match that you're playing and getting frustrated because it's online and calling people onliners and thinking that that guy, the only reason he killed you is because he has fucking 10 less ping than you, then you can fuck off. Because right now, you are still getting paid most likely the same amount of money as you were before coronavirus hit to do the job in an easier circumstance. You don't have to travel. You can be in your home environment. The fact that I read from Daps that he was saying that it's not like a tier 1 LAN, so teams aren't boot camping for it. What the fuck are you doing? You're trapped inside. What the fuck? I'm not saying you have to boot camp fucking 10 hours a day, but what the fuck are you guys doing with your time? If you're taking the piss, well, then you're taking the piss from your organization and thus your fans, right? That's what you're doing, right? If you don't want to show up to work and give it your all every day, that's a you choice. That's not anybody else's choice. And just because other people, like the shit, it just fucking blows my mind, some of it. It's like Copenhagen Flames, they played really good, right? But people will probably cite, oh, they're just onliners. They couldn't play on LAN. I'm sure they would have wanted to have played on LAN if they could have played on LAN, right? They want the experience too. They don't want any fucking asterisks next to their name. I don't even know how we fucking got here. I'm just tilted. Anyway,
I'm just gonna say maybe you misunderstood Daps' tweet a little bit just because he wasn't necessarily talking about Gen G. He was talking about the top teams who didn't necessarily think that.
Oh, I know.
What is going on now?
I know what he's talking about.
Okay, because it sounded like you were kind of almost blaming him for.
No,
I'm not directing it.
I'm not directing it at Daps because that sentiment is one that a lot of players have, right? Sure. I've heard that sentiment live on interviews. Yeah?
If anything, Daps is taking credit away from himself because he won that league against Liquid and EG and all of those guys. So he is obviously like literally taking away from his own win. So he is giving, excuses, as the community likes to call everything that everyone says is an excuse. So he's giving excuses for Liquid losing to Cloud9 and all of the shit that happened in ESL.
And I understand that, right? Like if I'm Stan and I'm playing from Canada and I have to play into a North American server and I have 80 ping, that fucking sucks. Like at no point is that like fun. I'm well aware of that, right? But the thing that I just am trying to get through here is this is the only circumstance we have right now. If you have an option to say to your organization, hey, you know, until we go back to LAN, we're not going to compete. If you have that option as a player and you really don't want to play online, try and do that. That's the best recommendation I can give for you. Otherwise, this is our only option. Like, this is the only option. Do I want to be stuck in Germany for 2 months straight? Not really. I have a beautiful 3-story mansion with a fucking pool waiting for me in Malta. Would I prefer to be there when the sun's shining? Yeah. But This is the situation right now. Everyone's getting on with it. We're still privileged that we can work. I don't want to cite all these things because people cited that shit at me and it fucking tilted me off the face of the earth because these circumstances everybody's going through differently. But the thing here is it's just like we have to accept this. We have to accept this because I personally, and this is a personal thing, this I haven't spoken to Valve or TOs or anything. I don't think we're going back to LAN anytime this year, if I'm being honest with you guys. I don't think it's happening. Even if we do studio events, I don't think we're getting everybody from all over the earth. We're probably just having Europeans, right? Or maybe we do just North Americans. Like I really don't know how people can fathom with the way that the world is looking right now and the restrictions that have in place that we will be going back to LAN play anytime soon. Like, explain that to me. Well, maybe I'm just maybe I'm blind.
There's at least a good chance that like certain regions will be able to, right? But that's like you say, it's not going to be worldwide. It's not going to be people from whatever Brazil or people
certainly not going to be with like 1,000 people crowd roaring in the arena and influencing players and stuff like that. So
no, but I'm talking about actual teams. Like obviously certain regions are going to be better off than others, and it's like certain countries are going to let off the limitations one after another. So it's like possibly this year we could have some LAN tournaments, but it's not going to be probably not going to be anything on the scale of a major where everybody gathers and plays against each other.
Yeah, it's just it's obviously a weird time. Fuck it. Let's just hope it gets better. Everybody keep doing what you're told. And, as long as it's within your own free will. I know there's Americans out there, they're loving a good protest at the moment. But, all right. I think come to the end of the recent news section. Marcus, we're going to move on to talk about Road to Rio now. So yes. Do you want to stick around or do you want to hit the tracks?
Actually, I'm going to hit the tracks.
Okay.
But thanks for having me. I've had a good time.
I just want to say this before you leave, mate. You have been my favorite guest to have on, and I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation that we were able to kick off there today. And yeah.
Hopefully I can join sometime in the future as well, again.
That'd be great.
By the way, SPUNJ was so worried about you, being shy and stuff like that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I've done so many interviews with you, and we've always had good talks. So I was like, I was not worried at all. So I'm glad that it worked out.
I'm definitely not shy. I'm reserved, I guess.
We had a chat, Marcus, last time I saw you in person, and we were talking about this side of things, and I was like, you should come on the analyst desks with us, and you were like, I don't really want to be in front of the camera, right? You're like, I don't want to do that shit.
No, that's more, I think, because of the pressure I put on myself.
Okay.
I mean, when I watch CS, I honestly want the Americans and like UK people, and because I want the highest quality, and I know that I wouldn't want to hear my accent myself when I watch like the highest produced Counter-Strike. That's just me. So that's why I prefer not to do it. And I mean, people can agree with that or disagree with that, but that's my opinion.
All right, well, I'm going to disagree with that because I think having you on the desk breaking some shit down would be sick. But anyway, I'll let you go. Thank you for joining us. Do you want any shout-outs?
Oh, I'm happy with this. Just thanks for having me and see you guys.
Sweet. See you later, mate.
Thanks for coming on.
Nice.
Perfect. Simple. Well, that was easy. I don't know. We're going to move on talking, boys. We're really trugging along here.
I just want to say, because he just mentioned like talking in like his accent and stuff like that. Like I think in esports for some reason we are super critical about people with accents. Maybe not with Maniac because French accent is kind of cool or whatever. But most of the people get shit on. Janko did like a lot. When you go to like soccer, football, and you watch like a broadcast from BBC or whatever, you have people that barely speak English. Like their English is super broken all of the time. And no one complains about, like, I don't know, I can't think about any Slaven Bilic, for fucking sake, talking on an analyst desk. Everyone's fine with it. It's like super cool. For some reason, we are like have like super high standards because we are esports or whatever.
Well, here's our problem, I think. Desk segments are quite short, so people are rushed, which means they potentially speak a little bit faster, and then it can be a problem. Whereas with a lot of the analyst desks for traditional sports at the moment, they're either a standalone programming, or people have to like go out of their way to find that content, right? So the hardcore. Whereas for us, it's almost being forced on people. And I would really love to have anybody of Pronax's caliber on the analyst desk next to me, because I'm just up there as a clown, right? I need some people who have some real life fucking Counter-Strike knowledge to get in there with me. So anyway, our producer, he's a very busy man. So we are going to speed run through some of the topics here to happen with Road to Rio. We won't have time for the fantasy or playtime. However, in 7 days' time, I have 2.5 months off. So we will bring you all of the fucking Counter-Strike podcasts for the rest of the time. Okay, so just going to run through these quickly. The first one, don't worry about the links, Lucas. We might save that if we have time. Just quickly addressing the round robin issue. Now, I know that you wrote an article about this, Striker. Yeah. And if people want to find this, they can just head over to HLTV.org and read it. But do you want to give them the TLDR?
Wow, TLDR of the whole thing. Basically,
I can give the TLDR.
Go for it.
As
somebody who didn't
person on the side. Like, I think the TLDR is obviously. In 2012, there was an article on HLTV that cited the issues with round robin and the other like options that we had, written by Lurpus back then. And then after that, a lot of tournaments switched from four-team round robins to GSLs. And most of the people that watch CS, except for the last year or maybe with ESL Pro League coming to LAN and what they did not see a 4-team round robin group. Like, it almost never was used. GSL was always used because of the reasons we know, which is there are no useless matches. Every match means something. It's like a progression or elimination match. And you don't have to go into stupid tiebreakers, which are based on either maps won or rounds won, which also some people are trying to make like that does matter. It doesn't matter because CS is a game of two sides. One side can be super CT side. You start CT side, you win 16-3. When if you start at T side, it could be 16-14 or whatever. So basing on any of those things is dumb. And then it also opens up a lot of issues with potential, not really match fixing. We don't really expect match fixing on the top level, but maybe fixing in terms of not putting in your all into matches which don't mean anything for you, but for the opponent or maybe someone else in the ranking, it means a lot. So there are a lot of issues. Let's just say. So if you want to find out, Striker made a decent article.
Now, I want to offer up some stuff here from an alternative perspective. But once again, let me preface this. I think round robin for a traditional tournament is pretty shitty. I think that if you're at a tournament that goes for like 7 days or whatever, and you were doing a round robin format like this, and then it came down to round difference or something like that as the reason you didn't make it, I don't think that's acceptable for what we're looking at running. But in the format that we're doing right now for the RMR, I think that either the round robin or the Swiss, which is what Panda made a tweet saying is apparently only what Valve are accepting as formats for the RMR events. I can make a justification for that. I can actually see where they're coming from. Now, well,
that's explained in the article too. I'm just going to say that it's pretty obvious why tournament organizers are doing it, right? And I'm going to just speak to this as somebody who's not affiliated with ESL as you are, just so it has, I guess, more credibility. Because obviously what you were going to say is for tournament organizers, this makes perfect sense because of the number of matches that are being played and because of the fact that everybody plays each other. So there's so much variety for people to watch various streams, especially when we had concurrent streams going. They could pick and choose which match is going on, which is probably not going to happen with Swiss because there's just not as many matches going on.
Also, scheduling is easier because you know, like the whole group stage when who's going to play who at what time. So you can really make like whatever graphics and everything days in advance, and teams know when they can practice and stuff like that. So.
Obviously, you can be a little bit creative and make a format that matches up to the same number of matches that a round robin has. You can like combine different stages and stuff like that to be on par with that. But obviously, it's not going to be as, I guess, straightforward in a sense in terms of the scheduling as Prop was saying and stuff like that. So, like I said, there's a lot of reasons why tournament organizers are doing it, and they're understandable. But I'm not sure if like the pros and cons are worth it, honestly.
I mean, let's just add that DreamHack is now doing 4-team round robin groups with 3 teams advancing. Yeah. Like that is almost pointless, like to a degree. Of course, there's an upper and lower bracket thing, but it seems like those are the matches that are just made and played just to have matches, and not actually to decide anything. So that is when we go into the part where we're really sacrificing that competitive integrity just for viewership, right? Then
and also like
oversaturation,
right? Because like there's so much CS going on right now that it's impossible to keep track. Like you literally go to sleep at like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. after you've finished watching Road to Rio in North America, wake up the next day, then you see Asia going on, and then like in a few hours Europe is going to be back on and stuff like that. It's absolutely impossible to keep up with just the top tier in every region, let alone anything below that. Like there's just so much going on that you have something to watch all the time. And obviously if that's going to happen for too long, people are just going to get fed up with it, and that's not going to work to the benefit of the tournament organizers anymore, because they're just going to keep losing viewership based on that, because there was just too much going on for too long. So there's that to consider.
I want to take an angle here that isn't like a TO angle, it's a Valve angle, right? Because if it is Valve, if what Panda said is true, and I have no reason not to believe Panda, that Valve are only accepting RMR and RMR events as Swiss or round robin, I want to try and make sure that people understand potentially why that isn't a horrible one. Now, for the DreamHack or the Pro League before, or the events coming in the future, the round robin stuff, I don't want to get stuck into that conversation at this current juncture. If we just look for Road to Rio though, Lucas, if you can bring up that link that I gave you. Now, a lot of people are asking questions. I see this all the time. I don't mean you're asking right now, but I see this all the time. And I get it constantly on social media about, oh, such and such lost, and now they can't qualify for the major. What does this mean? We've done a very poor job. And when I say we, I mean me personally, because I take this as a big part of my responsibility on the broadcast to tell you guys how this is going. And either I haven't had enough information, the information has been changing, or we haven't been able to present it in a way that I can do this succinctly. So I'm going to attempt for all of the next week to try and present this the best I can. But just having a look right here, I've had Lucas pull up the blog post. Lucas, can you just zoom in there on the points for this one for everybody? If you can, I don't know if that's possible. Okay, so the points here that you guys can see, right, this is something that a lot of people are missing, is the fact that there are 3 of these tournaments. Now, there are 4 columns of points that you guys can read. From the Berlin Major, points have been given out to the 16 teams, as you can see right there. However, those points do not stand as you would expect them to as of that graphic, based on the rules with the players and the 20%. You may have heard about that with the JUGi experience. Now, you need to think about this as a qualification process over the entirety of 2020. Do not think of these events as if they are standalone. What we are measuring is in different windows of time, who are the best Counter-Strike teams, right? And we're doing it by having everybody almost playing everybody, right? We're doing a lot of Counter-Strike in that fashion. So what we're trying to find out is, in just if we paused right now and we had a look, we could say, well, this team, they perform the best at this period of time against all other teams. There's no other way to do that without a round robin or Swiss. Obviously, we're not going to get all the teams, but we're getting a lot more teams in that sample size. Now, notice as well that the points scale upwards. So as we get closer and closer to that major, those points are going to mean a lot more. Now, this is where it gets a little bit sticky and tricky for people to understand. Scroll down, Lucas, to the next table. This one, okay, perfect. So this one here, what I want everybody at home to take note of the most is that bottom column. Now, on this bottom column, for those who are listening via audio only.
It's a row, not a column.
You're right. Rows and columns. You banged on there. Now, on that bottom section, let's just go with that. You can see that there are a certain amount of slots given out to each region. So for, my eyes are fucking terrible. What's the furthest one say, Lucas? Oh, yeah. But those 11 slots are broken down into the different stages of the major, right? So the whole way that this is going to work over the 3 RMR events is that once the points are accumulated and locked in, we will have 3 teams straight into the legend stage for EU. We'll have let's say 6. Fuck, my eyes are bad. We'll have 6 teams going into the challenges, and then we'll have 2 teams going into the contenders. And that's just as previously as majors were done before, right? So with these things, you have to think about those points scaling into it. The problem we have is we have other tournaments. We have Pro League, we have Blast, we have DreamHack, we have Flashpoint. If we literally just had this, it would be fine. But we have everything else. So yeah, my point is I've done a bad job explaining it. I'll try and do a better job on the broadcast so everybody at home can understand. And I think that us doing round robin in this situation isn't the worst thing in the world, but bookended by 2 other tournaments that are round robins, it's going to make some people really resent Counter-Strike. That's just it.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting to a point where it's just like, especially because I know a lot of these matches don't really matter until like you get to like the last round where like you can clearly see that there's something on the line, what's on the line. Like with knowing that, it just takes away so much of the excitement from of watching matches and stuff like that. So that's something that I've noticed over the past couple of months.
Just wanted to add one thing that SPUNJ kind of implied, but maybe didn't like say out loud, that all of these matches, additional matches that we have in a round robin compared to, let's say, ESL group stage from like 2019, the LAN like double elimination thing, all of these additional matches are used so you can better filter like who is 19th, who is 21st, who is 16th, like, because all of those places give different number of these RMR points. So if we go back to like 2019, we have a LAN, like it only matters if you go through the playoffs or you don't, right? If you go out in the group stage, if you finish like 9th to 12th or 13th to 16th, who really cares? It doesn't really change anything to you. But in this, like what Valve, I guess, wants is to have a better, how do you say?
Order.
Better, like, yeah. So we know the order, like who is better at that point down to the lowest team in the competition. So that is what is allowed with more matches being played.
How do you guys feel about how the points? I know, Chad, you have an opinion on this. How the points are distributed, because it feels like it's weighed very awkwardly, with like first place getting 1,600, second place getting 1,500. Literally the same difference as between the last place and the second to last place and stuff like that. It's just like it feels like winning this competition doesn't necessarily, winning or coming fourth in this competition is probably not going to matter in the long run.
Well, it won't in Europe, for example.
Yeah,
most likely, but it will in other regions, right?
Yeah.
Like it definitely will in other regions. The thing with Europe and North America and CIS, who have the lion's share of slots, I would say, for those guys, it's not going to matter as much, because we should, in theory, have the teams that we expect to make it through because the points are so close. But I think another misleading point here is like the fact that in the RMR event, if you came 16th, you get 100 points. If you come first, you get 1,600 points. Like the scale from last to first doesn't look bad, but the scale from like second to fucking 7th or 8th just looks ridiculous. But it's all in 100-point increments, right? So maybe the fact that they've put the points so high, like if they put 1 for last and 16 for first, as an example, maybe I wouldn't look at it in the same way as even though it's the same numbers with just zeros put on the end, right? That's literally all it is. I don't know. I
just feel like there's such a little, like, it seems like such a small advantage to actually win the final, If you get 1,500, you're still really well off compared to everybody else, like especially like further down the bottom. If you're, like you say, if you're in Europe where fucking 11 spots are on offer, and sure, like it can probably determine whether you're a legend or a challenger, like that, like the break can be there, but still, like you're gonna get to the major and you're not necessarily probably gonna care if it's a legend spot or a challenger spot. So it's like, I don't know, maybe there was a better system to use.
There probably was. There probably was. I think that obviously the circumstances which we're all facing right now play into this, and them having to make a bit more of a snap decision. And something else that I think that we need to consider with this is, by Valve by doing this, they're still giving us something to watch and tune into. Because if they just went, oh, well, Corona's fucked the world, we're not going to do the majors this year, we won't support Counter-Strike at all, that could be very detrimental. So I'm not saying this is the best of both worlds. I'm not saying this is even the best option that was at hand. I'm just saying, considering the circumstances at hand, it's not horrible. It's not great. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I fucking hate the coach rule, and I hate what's happening to North. But
maybe we can address that shortly before going, because obviously we won't be talking about the teams and all of that. We can do that next week. So maybe we can just touch on that, because that's also tied to the points, which is obviously the rule is if you change a player, you lose 20% of your points. And this is not 20% from a specific tournament, it's just like 20% of the total that you got, right? How does this work exactly? Or does it do like before the points you had at that point?
I'm curious about how they're gonna, like, how they would solve a situation in which, like, let's say kRB returns for playoffs, right? Like they're gonna lose. Okay, well, actually, I guess in that case it's pretty clear, because they made 2 changes. They lost 20% of the original value. And if they make another change, they will lose 20% of the remaining 80%, which comes down to 64% of the original value. That's how it works, right? So I'm just curious about how.
Yeah, the thing is,
not. Never mind.
The fucked up thing is, or JUGi, the Swedish JUGi, stood in for them because a player couldn't play, and this is something that can happen to any team for any reason, to any player, literally. And they can't just give up everything. They can't just forfeit the. I mean, technically they could, but they'd lose even more points if they forfeited the rest of the tournament because you can't play with 4 players. So you bring in your coach and you do whatever you do. North made playoffs now. Maybe they even beat someone else. Who knows? That's essentially at some point they'll have to replace JUGi, their coach, with a player. Let's say it even isn't kRYSTAL. Maybe kRYSTAL is lying and he went to Astralis. Who cares? Like, they'll again lose points for that. So let's say theoretically, if they replaced him for someone else, then that would make sense. But if you replace the player, like you literally had a stand-in for one player and that player comes back, why do you get double punished for pulling out the player and putting him back in? That just doesn't make any sense to me.
I look, this is the same issue that I think we had when the coaching question went out. And it's Valve are not familiar with the online landscape. They're just not familiar with what we're currently dealing with here. Because the only reason that coaching email would go out tells me it's from somebody who doesn't understand what Counter-Strike looks like online, right? That's what that tells me. And I know for a fact that ESL know what Counter-Strike looks like online. They're not ignorant to any of the workarounds that would have been possible if Valve had said, about if they had made the ruling on that coach situation. I would say that this percentage thing is probably seen through a similar lens, but unfortunately the rule needs to be softened. It needs to have a personalized touch to it. Like, nothing in life is black or white, and unfortunately rules have to be written black or white. But we need an area of gray here where somebody can be appointed to say, shit, this kid he's sick, he's in hospital, he can't play. We're not going to punish the entity because this kid here physically can't get out of bed, right? Like, that is an adjustment which just needs the human touch, the human element to it. And that is one thing that I don't know how to get through to Valve, because I look at Valve as a company, right? I look at Valve as like coders, and I know the faces of the people there, but to get them to change this rule, I don't have any contact with them. The best people to probably talk to them, and this is no joke, would probably be like Peter from HLTV.org. Like, he
does talk to them a lot. I mean, a lot, but like whenever he has contact with them, obviously.
And like that honestly, there is not a person in this community more than Peter who I think knows like more about the nitty and the gritty and the inside of the game and looks and actually contemplates things as much as he does. So if anybody was going to be our silent voice, I'm fucking glad it's him. But it's just a shame that we don't have a clear avenue to get these things through, because the CSPPA, they're a player union, right? They're doing their stuff, but they can only take so many fights, and there's only so much stuff that they actually have dominion over. Now, Lucas, how quick you got to go, mate? Okay, you're here. We're almost done. Don't worry about it. We'll almost close this one up.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on, this is something that Striker said also, and when we were talking about this, that this 20% for every player swap could be something to counter like Astralis' 10-man roster. That JKS from JKS26 in chat says that. But that is something, like, I understand that, but at the same time, like, if we are doing this to counter Astralis and the byproduct is punishing everyone else that had like normal intention, just swapping a player that couldn't play for a coach and bringing him back, then that is not worth the punish of Astralis, right? It's just not worth it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be just against Astralis. It can just be against that
just
premise,
an example.
Right?
Yeah, just an example.
Yeah, because like obviously if they saw that this is something that's potentially starting to be a trend, like then they probably want to do something about it, right? Not allow this to happen unpunished. So I guess that will be my guess, at least, why they did it.
Yeah, it's one that I'm not sure if we'll ever get a clear answer to. It's one that hopefully we can. But look, I've got to run. This has been a good episode. I've actually, like, this, no joke, has been probably one of the episodes I've enjoyed the most in recent history.
Yeah, pronax was great.
Yeah, that was fantastic stuff. So, let's do this. Next week is the end of the Road to Rio, and there's a couple days before the DreamHack event kicks on off. So we'll probably fit a podcast in then, assuming that everyone's available for that one right there. So keep your eyes on Monday, Tuesday next week, most likely. We'll have it available in VOD form, YouTube, all that good stuff. You can follow us on the socials. That's all in the chat. Anchor.fm/HLTV for the audio versions of the podcast. It's on Spotify. You get it on Apple, whatever the fuck Apple users use these days. I don't know, some kind of store. But yeah, check all that shit out. We're back. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for once again for listening to what a bunch of idiots had to talk about with Counter-Strike. And yeah, thank you to Prophet, Striker, and Lucas for all being here. It was great fun. And we'll be back next time with some more. So see you later.